life is a bowl of cherries, you know? You get the pits with the good stuff. So, that's an old book, you remember?
Which book?
The book written about 40 years ago. Life is a bowl of cherries. But it's true. Life is some pits and the cherries and the good stuff you eat and enjoy.
True.
What's the earliest memory you have?
My first memory is the ambulance pulling up to take my mother to the hospital to deliver my younger brother. And I was somewhere around 3 years old. But it was very traumatic for me to think about mother going to the hospital.
Wow.
But in those days, she stayed about 2 weeks. She stayed maybe about 2 weeks for me too, when we deliver a baby.
Where did you stay? Did you stay at the hospital with her, or?
I stayed with my grandmother, my mother's mother, Goff, I called her, Oma Keaton. We lived up the street from her, and I stayed with her. It's a lot of fun to stay with her. One of my earliest memories with her, she would stop by and get me, because we lived so close. She would stop by and get me to go to Woolies. Woolies was Woolworth's, that 5 and dime store in downtown Lubbock. And it was so much fun I could look up at the cabinets. They're too tall for me I could barely look over the cabinets to see what they were selling in the store, but it was so much fun.
And that's in Lubbock?
Yes, it was in downtown Lubbock on Broadway, on the end of town where the jail was, on maybe the east end of Lubbock.
And what did Woolies sell?
Woolworths sold everything 5 and dime store. It was from hairnets and I don't remember.
Convenience store?
Yeah,
Lots
no
of-
food.
No food.
They had a counter along the store where we had to sit in stools on the counter, and you could get something to drink at the counter, but I don't think they sold food of any kind. Not sandwiches or anything that I remember. But we didn't ever eat there because we didn't eat out at that point. We didn't ever eat out when I was little. We just ate at home, and that was the way it was.
Everybody was healthy back then.
Well, maybe so. I don't remember what else Woolies sold, because I remember Gaga buying a hairnet there. And what do I remember?
What did she need a hairnet for?
Well, she wore a hairnet to sleep in, and to when she would tap up in the bun, she would put a hairnet on her hair.
Hairnets were real popular then.
Instead of like a ponytail, they would have a hairnet.
They didn't wear ponytails at that point.
Right.
So, what did Woolies sell? You know, the 5 and dime store.
Well, they sold some of the things that a drugstore would sell now.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Walgreens type stuff.
Yeah, Walgreens type stuff.
Store. Okay. Yeah.
Some makeup and some household things, but it was cheaper side of life. Woolies was known as a 5 and dime store. The 5 cents and the 10 cents. 5 and dime store.
5 and dime.
Wow. You could just
That
bring
was
a pocket
what
full
we
of
called
coins.
Yeah, but that's what we called it, the 5 and dime.
Wow.
Old expression.
5 and dime. So what do you remember your childhood house looking like?
What do I remember about it? They didn't change the house much. They built the den on when I was about 11, 12. They built the den on, but the house was somewhat different. The milkman would come and leave milk at the doorstep, at the back door, always the back door. But we had a little thing you open up, and he could put the milk in there and close it. You don't leave the milk on the back doorstep. You put it in the milk drop.
Wow. Was that like a service you would pay for? Like every month or something?
I don't think you paid for it, but happened. Probably just delivered it to make the sale.
Yeah.
Do you think it cost anything?
I don't know that the service did. It's just whatever the milk was. That was
Yeah,
it.
that's just what happened to get the milk.
That was the way they sold it then.
Wow. That's
But
amazing.
they didn't sell ice cream that way.
Huh.
And the milk truck didn't sell anything but milk.
Yep.
Maybe not even cream, do you think?
Yeah. I don't remember that. I just
don't
remember
know.
the milk.
Just remember the milk. And to get ice cream later on, when I was about 6 or 7 or 8, the milk truck would come and drive down the street and ring a bell, ding, ding, ding. So that would be good. The milk truck would sell ice cream then.
Wow.
Ice cream, to say it wrong. The ice cream truck sold only ice cream, and the milk truck only sold milk.
Yeah.
Wow. So you remember all the time the ice cream truck coming through and
Yeah.
the kids
They'd
lined
ring
up?
in the bell, and you'd go to the street and get your take your nickel. There's
Yep.
nickel, and buy ice cream. But fudgesicle or did they sell anything else?
I always bought a fudgesicle. I was a
Me
fudgesicle
too.
guy.
But they sold a kind of ice cream, the ice cream on a stick and fudge sauce on the side. What do you call it?
Oh, the Eskimo pie?
No, it's one Eskimo pie wasn't on a stick.
Fudge bars?
Well, they had fudgesicles, but then they also had a vanilla ice cream that was covered in chocolate that was on a stick. That was popular.
I'll let you know what I'm talking about. The ice cream on the stick with fudge sauce on this side, covered in the. Anyway, that's
So,
what we bought.
Icicle? No. Pop something.
I don't know.
You can Google it real
Anyway,
quick.
Well, maybe they don't sell it anymore.
What was your favorite subject in school?
Depends what school I was talking about. I liked government in senior high. I liked science, the science in college. I liked any kind of science in high school and science.
How did your family spend time together when you were young?
Well, mostly we went to my grandmother's house and mostly had a meal of some kind. That's about all people did then.
That's what we did too.
Yeah, that's what his family did too. And we would take something, my mother would take something, my aunts would take something to eat, and then we put it all together on the kitchen table. And I remember one time my grandparents were trying to catch a pigeon. It was hard to catch a pigeon, but they wanted to catch a pigeon for some reason.
To cook it?
No, just to catch it and look at it.
It's just for fun.
Yeah, just for fun. But that was what we did. Mostly the grown-ups would sit around and talk, and the kids would play, and I don't know what we played, but...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we had a lot of meals where people would come together and bring something.
Yeah.
Women would bring different things, and then they'd put them on the table, and everybody would help themselves.
Sometimes the women would bring sandwiches, and other times not sandwiches, but fried chicken was always popular.
Yeah.
But nobody bought fried chicken. They fried it in their kitchen. So fried chicken wasn't bought out there at the store.
It was probably a lot more delicious that way.
Well, it's just, we didn't have anywhere to buy fried chicken.
Colonel Sanders started the trend.
Oh, yeah, with KFC.
He started after we were grown up.
Yeah, they were older. It was all older.
Uh-huh.
Mostly in college, I think, when Colonel Sanders started.
Yeah, that's right.
And then he was the first one to deliver could go and to get it fried already. But most of the time, we didn't eat out with food brought in. It was just brought in from the women would bring food.
Wow. Were you guys around the time where everyone would get around the radio and listen to the radio?
We didn't listen to the radio.
Okay.
But I think that was before my time, radio, because we had TV at that time. I could remember, but TV didn't, and Lubbock didn't play all day. TV started at 6 o'clock at night and would play at the evening. Dallas had more TV, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, we had being 3.5 years older, I had times where we just had radio. Where we would sit around and listen to the radio. I can remember that. But that was...
We didn't. Yeah. I don't remember it.
Yeah.
Probably late 40s, early 50s, yeah. So did your house always have air conditioning as long as you can remember? Or
no, it didn't. Didn't have air conditioning most of the time. We had air conditioning from the time when they redid and built the den. Let's see. Air conditioning came in about 55. Was about 10 or 11, 56 maybe for air conditioning, but Lubbock was cool at night. It cooled down and not so much humidity. But Dallas, oh my gosh, you see what this is now. Dallas was really hard to deal with. Hard to live in Dallas.
Right.
I can remember my father telling us that they were going to go, he and my uncle and grandfather were going to go in the air conditioning business. and that was the first thing I'd ever heard about it. And they just said, we're going to do this, and when they went into it, we were the first one in our neighborhood that had any air conditioning. And people would come over just to see it.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, feel it mostly.
Feel it.
There's not much to see.
That's why we did Saturday night. Everybody would come over, and we had the air conditioning going, and they liked that.
And would watch TV with the air conditioning.
Yeah.
That was real special at that time, because it's really unusual to have it.
Yep.
You can
That
imagine go outside on the patio and feel what it would be like living here
I can't imagine.
and sleeping. You know, did you sleep last night with air conditioning?
Oh, yeah.
Of course. But it was real unusual when we were kids.
Well, before air conditioning, they
Wow.
did have swamp coolers.
Huh.
But that, what they call them swamp coolers, which were kind of fans with water connected with it.
I have an air conditioning in Albuquerque now, swamp coolers, and
Yeah.
some of
In
the
dry areas.
dry areas can use them now. It circulates air and circulates cool air with water in the air. It's comfortable, but not here, and not in Dallas.
So what was your first pet?
My pet,
First
Was-
pet.
Pinto, was the first pet. Well, before Pinto, I had a Cocker Spaniel that bit me, and bit everybody he could. He bit. So I had to give him away. But Pinto was really the first dog. I remember it was Chihuahua, brown and white Chihuahua. Mother said like a pinto bean. It was brown and white spotted. And we had him for a long time, from the time I was about 36, 9, about 8 or 9 years old, until he died. He died when I was a senior in high school, I think. And he slept in a chair in the living room. Mother had put a blanket on the chair because his body wasn't functioning very good, and he would slobber on the chair, and so she put a blanket on it, and he would ask to get in his chair, so we'd lift him up and he would sleep in the chair. But this one day he asked to get up in his chair, and he didn't wake up.
Aw.
So he just went to sleep. And we missed him. Keaton came home from school and built a little box to put his body in. And we buried him. We all stood in the backyard in the trees and buried Pinto in the trees in the backyard and had a little funeral for him.
Aw.
But he was loved. That was the first one I had for a long time.
And how old was he?
He was about, well, from the time I was, he was about 10 years old, I guess.
Yeah.
He bit my brother every chance he got.
But he liked you?
He liked me. It didn't bite me.
Yeah.
But Keaton teased him. Pinto would be sleeping, and Keaton would kneel down by the chair and poke him a little bit, and it'd bite him.
Oh my gosh.
Bite Keaton.
That's so funny.
One thing quickly about Pinto. Anyway, just so you
Yeah.
know, Pinto liked to chew gum. And Daddy would come in from work and have a pocket like this.
Uh-huh.
He'd Spearmint gum would be in the pocket.
Oh my gosh.
Pinto would nuzzle up and push it in the pocket. And Daddy would take a piece of gum out of the pocket and peel it, give Pinto.
Give it gum. Did Pinto chew on it or just swallow it immediately?
No, he chewed on it and loved to chew on it.
Oh my
Tucked
gosh.
his face up and he was so cute. Only got one piece of gum every day. All he chewed.
That's
But
right.
a whole stick of gum would be a mouthful for a little dog. The other thing Pinto would like, he's liked coffee. Mother gave him coffee with cream and sugar. Every time she drank a cup of coffee, she fixed it for Pinto. And she'd leave about a spoonful of coffee in the cup and then he would slurp it out. No. He liked coffee. But he made it fat. That made it fat. 'Cause Pinto was a fat dog.
Really?
It was
Did a little
about
bit
this
fat.
Yeah.
big around, and he was a small dog.
Mhm.
For a Chihuahua, he was fat
Uh-huh.
from drinking coffee.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny.
Yeah, he was cute, sweet dog. I have to think heaven would be heaven with Pinto and,
Sweet toy.
Aw.
yeah, Sutoy have to be there too.
Yeah.
Pinto.
We need to tell him the story about, we had one of the dogs that we had over the years was Sutoy. She was really tight with Sutoy.
Uh-huh.
They were real close. Sutoy developed some kind of a illness. What was it?
Sutoy's body wasn't working good, and I had to put her to sleep. And it's a very sad day, very sad time of life when I had to put Sutoy down. But anyway, that lady won. Anyway, Georgia got carried
Well, we were out in California, in San Francisco.
at a psychic seminar.
Yeah. And this woman comes up to us and she said, to Linda, she said, well,
She said this, and when we made her again at Salt Lake Airport,
yeah,
we saw the same lady, and she said this to me, George, in the airport in Salt Lake.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We'd been seeing her in California at the psychic seminar,
yeah,
and she was going home in Salt Lake on the way home.
Oh my gosh.
And she said this to George.
yeah. She just said she said, I'm going to tell you that there's a little gray and white dog. I don't know if she called it a Shih Tzu, but she said there's a little gray and white dog walking beside you.
Aw.
And so she was real tight with Sutoy.
Yeah.
And so,
Sutoy would be with me in heaven if her
Yeah.
heaven was heaven. Sutoy would be there.
yeah.
Wow. Sutoy's been following you ever since that airport
Yeah,
day,
she's
too.
all-
She's right there.
She's my dog,
Mm-hmm.
just like Katie would have.
Lucky.
Hmm
Yeah.
Katie would have Lucky. If heaven is heaven, our dog will be there with
Yeah.
us. And I see Sutoy and Pinto, and I think that heaven is heaven with my dogs being there. I love the dogs even here at the apartment. I love the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of the people here have dogs.
Oh, yeah. That's nice. You get to see them without having the responsibility.
Yeah,
That's what my apartment is, too.
yeah.
So what did you and your friends do when you were a kid for fun?
How young do you want me to tell you? We played jacks a lot. Was the ball game, little ball. Do you know what jacks are?
No.
Jacks are a metal piece that would throw in the floor and then bounce a ball to see how many we could pick up when the ball was up in the air. and catch the ball. So it's a game we played on the hardwood floor. I love to play jacks, so that was one thing. And I didn't get together much with friends and early on, but when we started dating and being senior, junior, maybe in high school, we'd dance on the street. We'd park the cars in downtown and turn the radio up and dance and dance and dance and dance, and so much fun.
Oh my gosh.
And the police or anybody would drive by and see us, and they didn't care. It wasn't hurt anything at all. So there was no place to go, really. There's not any place to go in Lubbock. I don't know what they did in Dallas, but we didn't have anywhere to go. The bowling alleys were not where we could go. Nice people don't go to bowling alleys. So we didn't go to bowling alleys. And there wasn't anywhere else to go.
Now, one thing I remember about both of our houses, we had detached garage from the house, both of our houses, and it was amazing. I can remember as a kid, and you may have had the same thing, but my parents would leave the cars out, which walking down the sidewalk, you could just walk right up to the car, and they left the keys in it.
Yeah, keys were always in the
Keys
car.
were always in the car.
Nobody
was
stole cars.
Nobody could steal cars.
Oh my gosh. How did that change?
Well, it changed to be sure. Yeah, the cars are always left with the keys in it.
Wow. Did you ever get in trouble as a child or a teenager?
As a teenager, to be sure, I was in trouble a lot.
A lot? You got in trouble a lot?
I got in trouble a lot. I stayed out too late and sat in the car and talked to the boyfriend. I talked to George in the car, and I remember my daddy standing on the porch, waving me in. Come in, come in, come in.
What for?
But he was in his underwear.
Oh my gosh.
But my deadline to come in was 10:30 at night, and the weekends it was 11. Weekends 11 and 10:30. Well, I didn't go out at all during the week. So when we were dating in college, I could go on a Coke date. For an hour. We could go on a Coke date. Somewhere to go to buy Coke and drink it, and then I could stay out an hour. But on the weekends, Friday night it was 10:30 and 11 o'clock on Saturday night. My daddy would wave me in.
Oh my gosh. What happened if you broke the rule? Did you ever break the rule?
Not too much. I think I dreaded seeing him on the porch with the underwear. I don't remember any kind of I don't remember being in trouble all that much.
Mm-hmm.
To me it was a lot, but thinking back on it, I don't remember.
What do you remember the most about your mother?
It was always gone somewhere. I stayed with the maid or with my grandmother. When I said the maid, do you know what I'm talking about? We had a black woman to come and clean at the house, and I stayed with her a lot. She was nice. Her name was Lurleen, and I stayed with her a lot when Mother was gone. other one's gone to junior league or somewhere, bridge club, always gone somewhere. She had a lot of friends. She had grown up in Lubbock. They stayed friends. The ladies stayed friends. There were 8 of them, I think, that were still friends when I was young, and even when you knew.
Yeah. Well, I stayed a lot with my grandmother too, because my mother did a lot. My mother was gone a lot. And, meetings, and she did church stuff, and I would stay down at my grandmother's.
Lots of hard work.
My mother didn't do church stuff at all. She didn't go to church because she couldn't get up and dressed in time for
Yeah.
church. So occasionally she would go to church, but only to the preaching service at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
So was your father religious?
No,
So neither of them cared that much? Were they raised religious?
no, they weren't, either one of them. And my daddy worked on Sunday just like he fed the cattle on Sunday just like he fed them on Thursday. The cattle ate every day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
So he was working, and he would come home and maybe have fried chicken or roast beef or something, a roast on Sunday.
One thing she's brought up that emphasizes that how much fried chicken we used to eat.
Yeah.
That was
Really?
big. That was a big thing.
Really?
But pieces were small.
Yeah.
The chickens were only 2 pounds per. And then we cut the breast and the pulley bone and the 2 legs and the thighs and all the same pieces of chicken, but the smaller. The small breast would be about this size, but they were small pieces. So we had a lot of fried chicken.
Wow.
Couldn't find a 2-pound chicken anywhere in the store. Maybe for baking or for something, but
Or
well, they feed the animals different now, and they make them bigger pieces, bigger chickens. The chickens, when you see them, they can't even stand up. Their breasts are so heavy that they lie down pretty much, and they feed them that way to make the pieces bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know about the cattle. I don't know what they do to cattle, because I haven't bought beef in a long time, so I don't see much. When I walk by the store, it seems to look the same, but I don't know. The fruits and vegetables are on TV now.
Yeah.
The fruits and vegetables now are more preservatives. I noticed the strawberries mostly. When I was young, could barely get the strawberries home before they spoiled and they're soft. But now the strawberries are hard to cut even.
Wow.
They're bigger and firmer and a lot different.
A lot of preservatives.
Yeah.
Do they taste better now?
No, they don't taste as good.
Really?
In fact, I haven't bought strawberries this season because they don't have any flavor to them.
Huh. Yeah.
Next time you eat a strawberry, see if it has a flavor.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of sad.
Yeah. So, sad, but there were more vegetables in the market then.
What was your first job?
Well, when we married, and but I worked at the auction barn for the cattle auction. I worked in the office there in the cattle auction in Lubbock. My granddaddy and daddy had cattle auction, and I worked there in the cattle auction doing tickets when the cattle would come in and a buyer would raise their hand that they wanted to buy this animal. They had they had a ticket, would be made a ticket, and I would take the ticket and take it downstairs for the office so they could keep track of the animals to see that the right buyer got the right animal, and there were tickets to see about that. So it was a lot of trouble to keep up with. So an animal comes in and a buyer says, I want to buy that particular animal. So they have to be in the pen, the right pen to go to the right buyer, and the buyer has to come to the office and pay for it. So it's a lot of work to keep track of the animals. Over in Fort Worth, there's a place that
Stockyards?
yeah, stockyards was big animal stockyards. I remember my granddaddy going there one time to buy the auction, but he didn't go too much to the stockyards much. It's too far away.
Yeah. Do you miss that whole cattle ranch life?
The last time he sent cowboys to see about the cattle, he sent 5 cowboys on horseback. He sent them from Lubbock to the Mexico to herd the cattle up to Lubbock, and they sent 5 cowboys on horseback, and they would, a lead cowboy would be the leader, and then the herd, and 2 and 2. So it took 5 cowboys
to get the
herd.
cattle to...
Yeah, and he sent 5 cowboys one time that I remember, but my mother was the last of the ones that would go on a chuck wagon. She remembered going on a chuck wagon with the herd somewhere, probably New Mexico.
She went out there and got to see the process.
My granddaddy had 2 ranches in New Mexico, and so she probably went there with the chuck wagon and the cowboys.
So what position of the Cowboys was your dad?
My dad didn't run.
Oh, he didn't?
Didn't
It was just
run.
your grandfather?
My grandfather didn't either. They had hired cowboys
Oh, okay.
that worked the cattle. My daddy worked the cattle on horseback when they had feedlots, but he didn't ride with cowboys on horseback for long distances. You know, I'm sorry I can't describe it better. But
No, I understand. Yeah, so he would
the-
hire them to do it.
Mhm. Neither one of them were long distance cowboys,
Hmm.
but the ones that were long distance cowboys they had a specific thing they did. The one leader of the herd led rode right in front of the cattle. Then the cattle were back behind, but the 2 and 2 that were back behind, they had to keep the cattle in the herd so they didn't wander off. Cattle are not very smart, and they tend to wander off. So they had to keep up with the cattle. So they had to be really good riders.
Yeah, that's amazing they can get them to follow like that.
And he did, I think mid 50s was the last time he sent cowboys to Mexico to bring a herd. But he would buy them from the herd. Whoever he bought them from, and I don't know where he bought the cattle from, was the Mexican cattle people. So he bought them in Mexico, and then the cowboys would bring them to Lubbock.
So what changed in the mid-50s to where he didn't need to do it anymore?
Somehow, I don't know, but somehow they changed the availability of the cattle. Somehow they didn't need to go to Mexico to bring the herd back to Lubbock. I don't know how it changed.
Yeah.
It's, would be interesting to find out what changed.
I was just going to say, I have a funny memory at the time when we were dating, and I went over to pick up Linda, and she and her mother gone out somewhere. They hadn't come to. We was at her grandfather's house, grandparents' house, and I went in and waiting for her, and so he said, "Come on back here," and I went back. He always had a bedroom. He had 2 twin beds in there, and he would stay and watch TV in that room. And so we got to talking, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm looking for an apartment." I said, "Where I'm at is closing down, and I've got to find an apartment." He said, "Well, why don't you just take this bed right here, and you can just stay right here?" So I didn't know what to say, so I said, "Yeah, okay." And so then her parents came over to her mother, she and her mother, and her mother came in, and he said, "George and I've been talking," and he said, "I think George is going to move in and have this bed next to me." And I always remember because she was so dignified, and she looked at him and she says, "To hell he is." I always remember that because, boy, that was going to happen.
What was your first car?
My first car was a blue car and Ford Starliner, and it was pale blue, and my cousin Claudia had the same car. It was that kind of green color, and my papa made trade with the man in Bonham, I think, Bonham, to buy these 2 cars, and he sent Susie, his secretary, Susie, and her roommate, her friend. The first gay people I knew was Susie and her friend. They get the cars in Bonham and drive them to Lubbock. And we woke up one morning and there was cars in the driveway.
Do you remember how much it cost?
Yeah, about $2,000, I think.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
it was Ford, a 2-door Ford. It was nice.
I remember that car.
Wow. Do you remember what you were doing when JFK was assassinated?
Yes, I do. If I can say it all. I was at home having lunch between classes. I was going to tech at the time, and he was assassinated about lunchtime, I remember, and I was eating a turkey sandwich
Wow.
and watching TV, I think. Yeah.
And breaking news.
Yeah,
Yeah, breaking news.
it's a big
And
deal.
my German teachers wanted to go home. They were so upset that they thought they'd never get home to Germany again. But they did, I'm sure.
What did that have to do with it?
I don't know.
Nothing. They just didn't know what was happening.
Yeah. But I just remember seeing the roadway and has brings the shots fired, and they didn't know a lot in the beginning. They didn't know too much about Oswald, and so it all evolved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Oswald that story grew out of all that. It wasn't immediate.
How many did it take? A few days? Or
I don't-
because he was arrested that same day, wasn't he?
He may have been, I mean,
He was so
think
clumsy.
but later on, I've heard of John Kennedy was assassinated, and he was pronounced dead about 1 o'clock or 1:30, and then they got the killer later on. I don't know how much. I wasn't focused on that. I was focused on the Magruder film, the playback film. We didn't see it much. Can you ever see it, the Magruder film? We didn't see it right away.
yeah.
I don't think we did till later on.
Wow.
So we just talked about it.
Yeah. Yeah. What
Yes.
more?
They didn't do playbacks then.
Right. Yeah. If you missed it.
If you
You
missed,
missed
it,
it.
you missed it.
So what do you remember outside of media? What was your first-hand account of seeing segregation?
Segregation. Well, my mother always took the meat from the freezer and loaded it in the car, and we took it to Avenue H, which was where the black people lived, and she gave it to somebody on Avenue H. She gave away all of her meat that was left from the previous beef. She got a beef twice a year. So we didn't talk about segregation much in our family. It just happened, and I don't know, wasn't something we talked about, and we didn't know much about it. I didn't know much about it because we didn't talk about it. So I remember Lurleen having a white uniform, and she was black, and she worked, and I liked her a lot. I loved to sit on the dining room table and watch her iron because she was so good at it. And so my memories of black people is we had James to mow the yard. I didn't have much memories of the segregation as you know it.
Right.
But what I had, they were nice people, and they worked for us, and they were nice people, and so I didn't know much about segregation at all. They were not anywhere in my life, Um, I didn't go to school with them. I went to Lubbock High School, and they went to Dunbar. It was a nice high school, big high school in Lubbock, and they had a big marching band, and they had everything that I had in high school. So in college, when I came to Texas Tech, I wasn't particularly aware of it because it hadn't been part of my life.
We had 3 blacks come to Texas Tech. That was the first blacks that came. And I remember that was something announced. And I can't remember what it was, two guys and 1 gal or something that came to Texas Tech. That was the first black.
Then I didn't remember that much. They were in my classes, so I didn't know anything about, okay, so black people came, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's just something that happened and I didn't know about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting.
Times were different.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Well, you remember, they didn't live in our part of town.
Mm-hmm.
Lubbock was segregated, and they didn't live in our part of town. They lived with the others part like them, and they shopped over there and stayed over there and lived over there. I'm saying over there because it was on Avenue H, somewhere that they shopped and lived, and then come to 1902 32nd, I never saw one. So they didn't need to come shop and live in our part of town.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a mall then. We had downtown, and they came to the State Theater to see movies, and they had to go in the side entrance. They couldn't go in the front door, but I couldn't go. I didn't go to the State Theater. I went to different theaters, so I never saw it. It was not part of my life to have black people. So I didn't grow up prejudiced.
Right.
When I was a kid, we had blacks never came to the theaters, but when we would go downtown, the blacks could come, but they would bring them down the alley and go in the back entrance and go up to the 3rd floor, but we never saw them. They made it where the whites never saw the blacks.
And then blacks had black water fountains for black people, and whites didn't use the same water fountain.
Downtown in Dallas, they would all have one section that have white, and the other section say colored.
Why did they care so much about separating the 2 races?
That was what it was then. I don't know.
Was the hangover from the Civil War, probably.
Huh.
You know, my granddaddy was the great-grandson of a Civil War. So that's just the way they did it. This Tulsa Race Massacre was the worst race massacre in the United States. And they did a massacre. There's a TV show on History Channel. This is something you should take time to read. It's the pictures. But one man was bumped into a lady in the elevator. He was supposed to be where it was, but bumped into the lady, and the massacre resulted from that. And look at the town. It burned the town down where the black people lived. They had their own economy in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh my gosh.
They had quite a. Anyway, that's all there is. But
Yeah.
I'll let you read it till lunch.
I would love to.
This is 100 years later, see.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't grow up with racial, but these people did.
Yeah.
And you did. You have grown up with it too. But
Right.
we didn't. Was not something we talked about or thought about or anything was ever mentioned
Uh-huh.
about race. Anyway, that's what was big in our society then, was the coming home with the war, and the foods changed. What we watch on TV, the foods changed. You need to find that show about the foods changing, updating.
So, do you remember when, I think it was Neil Armstrong, when he first set foot on the moon?
Yeah, we do.
Uh-huh. Do you remember what you were doing when that happened, or?
No, I wasn't really interested
I was
in
in
it.
a mechanical engineering class.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I would have even guessed it to be later. I had Shelley about that time, and I don't know when.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't Neil Armstrong. It wasn't one of the things that happened there. I was in mechanical engineering class at Tech,
Huh.
but that would have been earlier than that.
Yeah.
I wasn't really interested in the flight to the moon.
Yeah.
That was interesting. The one that exploded, the rocket.
Challenger.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the 80s.
Mhm. I was at Carol's working, and Shelley was at home. She was sick and had surgery, and she was watching it on TV and called me at work. The Challenger just exploded. So that one I remember, but not before that too much. Neil Armstrong and that, I wasn't real interested.
Were you watching the Beatles when they were on Ed Sullivan?
Yes, was watching Elvis Presley mostly.
That's who you liked.
I liked Elvis Presley, and my mother thought, oh, that's so. My mother left the room when Elvis was on the TV, because nice girls don't watch Elvis Presley. Swimming in skips. That was not.
So what was your first discovery of Elvis?
Heartbreak Hotel was my first record, and I had it that on 45, and I listened to it and liked it a lot.
Yeah.
All of his music I liked a lot, but I liked Fats Domino and who else? I don't know.
Little Richard, that whole group of people. Jerry Lee
La Bamba.
Lewis. Who would?
La Bamba.
Yeah.
Bamba.
Yeah, what was that?
It was killed with an airplane crash.
Oh, yeah.
La Bamba.
Ricky Valance.
I remember he died in an airplane crash too.
Richie Valens.
Yeah.
Ricky Valance.
Yeah, you were right.
Yeah.
Big Bopper.
Mm-hmm.
Big Bopper. Yep.
J.P. Richardson. Wow.
When Buddy Holly was buried that day, they dismissed school for the traffic to flow in Lubbock.
Wow. So the funeral was in Lubbock, and you were in Lubbock when the funeral was happening?
Right.
Wow. Did you go to it or anything, or
No,
see
I
it?
didn't, but I was too young to drive, and my mother didn't go such places.
Did you know anyone that knew his parents or anything?
No, I didn't.
Because Lubbock can't be, back then it couldn't have been that populated.
Well, it wasn't, but I was too young, I was young enough that I barely was listening to music at that time.
Okay.
When did Buddy Holly die? And I'm trying to relate this to Elvis Presley, Heartbreak Hotel. When was that happening when Buddy Holly died?
It was the same time. Elvis was coming in right when Buddy Holly passed away.
Yeah.
Interesting. Huh.
So I was probably on a little table and had a record player on it. 45s were still the big thing. Oh, I only played 45s. And I don't know. I was young, probably grade school era for them to have.
Mm-hmm.
When did Buddy Holly die?
Buddy Holly,
It says February 3rd, 1959.
59. So I was a senior in high school.
I was older than I thought when he died.
Yeah, because he was popular in the early 50s before Elvis.
Yeah, he was before Elvis.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't listen to him. I don't know why, but I didn't listen to him.
Well, by 59, was he starting to be a has-been?
I don't know. I just remember Elvis Presley and some of the black singers but I don't remember Buddy Holly.
Something I've seen recently that I didn't really realize is that up to a certain time, it was almost all blacks
Uh-huh.
that were in popular music. I mean, that the kids watched.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck Berry.
Yeah.